Sup, creeps, and welcome to Creepy Confidential. Is Mothman really a supernatural force predicting impending doom? Did Apollo 11 really land on the moon in 1969? Did you find out if that was a cult that was living just 2 doors down that you waved to every single day when you got your mail? If these are the things you ponder when you should be sleeping, then I would like to welcome you to Creepy Confidential. I'm your host, Noelle, your resident weirdo Wisconsinite. I open case files on my favorite cryptids, cults, conspiracies, and other worldly creepy, with new cases, live broadcasts, and local lore. Some stories have been lost with time. Others are perhaps still happening today in your local communities, right up under your very creepy noses. So get ready, creeps. It's Creepy Confidential. What's up, creeps, and welcome to Creepy Confidential After Dark. This has been a heck of a go. Those of you that are tuning in, this is probably now on a different side here. Like Alex said, we know too much. So I would like to welcome to the show Alex of Strange Talk Radio.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Thank you so much for your patience this evening.
Of course.
Everything was fine.
It's
And then, little hiccups.
it's not live without some technical difficulties.
Right? Heck, we're going with it. We're going with it.
Yeah.
So, Alex, welcome to the show. And before we get going, tell us a little bit about what you do with Strange Talk Radio.
So, Strange Talk, we're a radio show, obviously. We talk about all things strange, weird, and paranormal. We've existed in a bunch of different forms since like 2010, but we didn't start becoming a radio show until 2017. We have on guests who are subject matter experts. We'll also have on touring musicians will come on, partially to promote their music, partially to tell us about all the weird things they see on tour, because musicians see a lot of it.
I'm sure.
They really do. And then we also do 2 other segments. We do Weird News, which we talk about the weird news of all the strange happenings around the entire planet Earth and sometimes in space too. And then we also do episodes where people can call in and tell us their spooky stories.
I have tuned in for a little while. One of my favorite things was the feel of it, how it has all the like different music with it, kind of very space sounding.
Yes.
It's kind of a round table feel without it feeling too like haphazard. I really enjoy it. I really enjoy it. Yeah. At least how, my armchair critic. So we actually, for those that may have seen us on other various posts, we have met a few times prior to this, where a lot of times, first time coming here on the show, that's the first time that I've met them kind of face to face. So with us, we've got to meet a couple times. We recently were at GhoulieCon together.
Yes.
And we both were vendors there, and I had a blast. I wasn't really, didn't have any sort of idea of how it was going to go. So it was a neat venue.
It was a really cool venue, and with it being a first time con, I was also like, I don't know if they know how it's going to go yet either, because it's always like hard to, you do all that planning and then you don't know how it's going to turn out day of, but it turned out really good.
I agree. I agree. I think, and if Miss Joanna pops in here, if not, we're talking about you, so your ears are probably itching. So we're summoning you. I can only have a slight feeling of how her anticipation was, and then as everybody started to roll in, it was my first time kind of hanging out with the horror community, with horror movies and how they break that down. Have you been a part of that before?
Not really. I've always loved horror movies, but like I don't really go to horror conventions, which I say that, but we're doing Scarefest this year, which that'll be really cool. It's just funny because I'm like, I haven't really done any of that, Most of the conventions, like I start out going to like Comic-Con and then cryptid conventions, and now I'm going to horror conventions, but that's like a pretty recent thing.
But it's kind of a segue that makes sense, because there are horror movies that aren't just people. They're alien. I was just watching something on aliens the other day, and that's something that exists as well. So
Yeah.
I guess I didn't really think about it until we were kind of there, and everybody just kept talking about how the movies pretty much were human versus human.
Yeah, a lot of
You know,
them.
and I was like, there are a lot of paranormal movies, which
Yes.
I
I'm
know
wearing a
I love.
Creature from the Black Lagoon shirt.
Right?
I
Come
like a
on, like
good monster
creatures,
movie. Yeah.
and you gotta have a good monster, and
Mhm.
or you have from otherworldly, where it comes to things like that. So, speaking of people that are out there that go to these horror conventions and love horror movies, you
Yes.
guys need to expand your horizons because I feel like you only talk about people.
Calling you out right now.
Yeah, I'm calling you out. Like, we seriously, there is so much more out there, and movies like Aliens, those are terrifying. Those
Yeah,
are absolutely
they
terrifying.
really are.
I, I like not sleeping, kind of terrifying.
Yeah. We've kind of been talking about that a lot leading up to Scarefest about, how, like, what monsters in horror movies at the time are really, like, a reflection of society's fears at that time. So I guess it kinda makes sense that most of our horror movies right now are mostly about other people because I feel like that is the scariest thing going on right now.
Because I think people are by far the worst. They're the
Yes.
scariest out of all of them.
Yes.
I think something I recently watched The Conjuring, and while it it is very scary, it was a person that
Mhm.
was related to it. As a witch,
Yeah.
or I'm like, again, it started out as a human. It morphed big time, but
Yeah.
definitely morphed. But speaking of paranormal, so while we were there, before
Yes.
we even like dive into the cryptids, cults, and conspiracies that I like to talk about, we had a grand old time with that ladder well was creepy.
So creepy.
So
So
for
creepy.
those, it was creepy. So when you walk in, it's one of those where you look up. It's an old church, and it was by far of all the place. It was just had a weird feeling to it. I don't know why. Maybe because the angle, that whole funhouse effect.
It
I
is,
get
and
it.
it's crooked,
Yeah, exactly. The steps are all like, it's been a
jagged,
while since
uneven.
she's had a facelift,
Maintenance.
some maintenance. And so we ended up using I used the Spirit Talker app, and you had it on your phone.
Mhm.
So I hope the guys of Spotted Ghosts eventually start seeing my stuff, because they need to know that we we need we need more
Yeah. Come on.
like these guys. Yes, it's fantastic. And it all started because at my booth I brought some of my trigger objects that I had from an old investigation, and before you know it, Alex and I were getting basically things on different. We were on different levels for our tables,
Mhm.
and yet we would meet, and you're like, oh my, these things they're lining up.
Yeah.
We weren't on the phone with one another. We weren't
Mm-mm.
texting one another. It was only when we were crossing each other's paths.
Yeah.
And
It
so,
was
kind of,
creepy.
what is your thoughts on that? Do you know how do you feel about that? I guess I know we're not a lot about feelings, but I'm curious.
Yeah, kind of, what we were talking about too, we were getting a lot of names, and so, like, part of me was wondering if it was, names of people who were, like, part of the parish of that church or something, because that kinda makes the most sense to me given that location and how old and historic and creepy it is.
Yeah.
Um Oh, that's really funny, I turned it on. I turned it on because I haven't turned it on in this house, and what I got was I was religious.
Immediately as we're talking about a church.
Well, that's creepy. Love that. I'm just gonna leave that running and just see what we get. I hadn't turned it on in this house, so I was like, I just moved here. Let's see what it says.
I'm
Interesting.
I think it's and oh, I saw Black Smoke Paranormal's keeping an eye on us. I like watching their channel too. They use various implements.
Mhm,
But that's something I've always, when you have that, that carryover, when
mhm.
this is related to this is related to this, and people on different floors are getting it, oh my gosh. So I think I mentioned these guys. So Trevor of What Goes Bump in the Night, this is one of the crews this is how I learned about the
Mhm.
app. These guys are bomb.com. So They're more paranormal. That's like their bread and butter is paranormal.
Yeah.
So if we get Mildred at any point, they need to know about that.
The word that we just got was admire.
Admire.
There we go.
I, again, it's like I wish we had. That's what sucks about these one word. Like there's no
Mhm.
context. It's like someone just going, butter.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? So I find that have you used that in your house before?
No, like I said, I hadn't turned it on here yet because we just moved here like beginning of July, so I hadn't thought to use it here. It is kind of like an older, like outdated building. I don't know exactly what year this was, but I haven't like felt anything here, and so I didn't even think to use it because I haven't felt anything here at all, like anything weird.
So funny side story. I just said butter, and Butter's Paranormal just
I,
popped in.
I did see that, and I was just like, "Is it trying to read what you were saying? What happened there?"
Yes. I love it. They're like, la, 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 la. I can hear somebody talking about me on the
Joanna's gonna come
internet.
into the chat next
Yeah,
because we were
come on.
talking about her.
Let's put this into the universe. Come on. Because I mean, we basically have chit-chatted because of
Yeah.
her, so that would be pretty
Correct, yeah.
cool.
Uh,
And go ahead.
well, my old house before this one was, like, a brand new house. They had knocked down a house and built a new house brand new, and what was funny is I was like, "There's no way this house is gonna be haunted. It's, like, brand new." And, sure enough, we had there what we like to call the cider ghost. It was, like, the first year that I lived there, I was putting, like, a can of cider back in the fridge after, like, carving pumpkins and making cider that night, and as I put it to the back of the fridge, I just heard, "Yes," really clearly in my ear, and I turned around really quick, thinking my roommate was gonna be standing there, but I was entirely home alone.
Oh, that's lovely.
So we just started calling it the cider ghost because it was really stoked about cider, and it would, like, hang out on the stairs, and we were like, "Why?"
But so you just because you would hear the noise on the stairs?
No, that's not where I even heard the noise. The noise was in the kitchen, but then we would just always see, like, the shadow of it on the stairs,
Like
just
chilling on the steps?
hanging out, just standing there. Super
See,
creepy.
for as much paranormal investigating as I've done in my life, they don't need to be in my space if
It
I'm
didn't
not there.
seem to, like, want anything, so it was mostly just like, "Can you go away?" And usually it would. So Cidergeist was pretty harmless as far as all things go, but the "yes" really creeped me out, and that's why we started
Yeah.
calling it the Cider Ghost.
So Ghost Dog says, "Yes, free cider."
That's exactly what I thought, because when that happened, I turned around and realized I was home alone and was like, "You can't have this, this is mine.
This is my treat.
This is mine. It's the good stuff. We got it from the apple orchard."
I've heard stories throughout the years of people that have had kind of I it's a chance they probably were there before you, like that
Mhm.
kind of thing, and they've continued to be there. I have yet, thank God, I don't want them around, but, that's never happened.
Yeah.
I haven't been like, "Oh, yeah, that's Bob. He hangs out on the steps."
Yeah.
So, I
You
don't know
know,
how I would handle that.
thinking back, so like I said, they knocked down a house to build a house there. The house that was there was, like, old and falling apart, and I later learned from the mailman there that the older couple that used to own that house before they sold it and then it was leveled, the husband had died, and so she moved just a couple streets over, but he had died. So part of me now is, like, wondering, I was like, "Oh, I wonder if that was his ghost, actually, where he was still tied to his old house, maybe, like, looking for his wife or
It could be.
something."
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, who knows, right? They just hang out. Do they travel? Do they like, "Hey, I died
Yeah.
here," but then 2 doors down, they see the same person? Or
Yeah.
poltergeist happens in, like, multiple houses, but it's one central baddie that's got, 10 graves underneath it.
Mhm.
Kinda like poltergeist, I guess.
Yeah. And that house was very, very close to a graveyard. We would, like, walk down there at night and hang out in the graveyard. That sounds way weirder than it is. It's very
No,
peaceful there.
there's no stigma. You no, you're talking to the correct person that will not judge you for that. I have where I've done here in Columbus, there's, the Columbus ghost tours with
Mhm.
Bucky. I'm sure he thinks I am like a fangirl when really I'm just there for the cemetery. I don't, and he has an infinite knowledge of them. And it's like, that's what I want to do with my afternoon is just walk
Yeah,
in a cemetery. First of all, no
it's
screaming
peaceful.
children,
No screaming
hopefully,
children.
hopefully. Um, and if they are, they're not real.
Yeah, it sounds
And
like uh-oh.
it has all kinds of historical stones to look at, unless you're one of those boring ones where they're all flat. So, I mean, they used to
Mhm.
be parks. It's what they used to do
Yeah, yeah.
way back in the day. So I have no problem walking around a cemetery at any time.
I
I
think
think
it's
they're
cool.
beautiful,
Yeah.
and they all have different piece.
Mhm.
Uh-oh. What do we have? Mrs. Creep, please tell your dog to stop asking for Zappo's voodoo heat potato chips. She must be in the living room.
They're good chips, though.
They're too hot. You're nuts.
Oh, I don't think I've had that kind. I like the
Oh,
rest of their chips.
oh, okay.
Yeah, maybe I haven't had that kind.
Now I have so when it's close to the cemetery,
Mhm.
it's weird. For the longest time, I was under kind of the thought that cemeteries aren't they're not going to have mojo because everybody's laid to rest,
Yeah.
hopefully. But there's all kinds of like I'll think about all the sadness, the joy, the whatever, the sometimes they lost their loved ones and they just are literally lost without them. I
Mhm.
think there's a lot of mojo that could be hanging around.
Well, especially the cemetery that was near our old house, it was, the name of the cemetery is African Cemetery number 2.
Hmm.
Um, so it was a lot of people who were slaves, and they made them be
Mhm.
buried in their own cemetery because they weren't allowed to be buried in the white cemetery. So that's part of why we would go at night is we would just kind of like, leave like treats and offerings of just like, hey, hopefully you all are peaceful and at rest. Like, here's some candy if you want it, stuff like
Right.
that. Just because it didn't seem like a lot of people visited that graveyard very often anymore. And so it was a lot of like, oh, somebody should be like paying respect. The only people that I ever saw in there was the people that were like taking care of the flowers and the trees there.
I I think two things happen with something like that. Either the family has just gone on and they're so
Mhm.
far back in the family they're forgotten about,
Mhm.
or it's a matter of nobody really knew who they were, which is
Yeah.
equally sad.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of times why these graves don't get taken care of,
Mhm.
which is sad, I think, because it keeps the memory going. You walk up and you read their name and you wonder, I wonder who they are.
Oh,
But
right as
in
you
my
said
opinion,
that, we got, I Had a Good Life.
see, now that's it's yours tends to be spot on. So we had this discussion in person. Is yours on Wi-Fi or airplane mode?
Uh, it is on Wi-Fi right now.
So yours is on the juice.
Mhm.
I tends like yours got way more being hooked in. But
I
but
it
it wasn't just garble. It was more answers. It was like they could get more answers. Excuse me. Hold on.
I kind of wonder about that too. So, like, my day job, I work in IT, and we joke about this, but, like, things will just start working when I walk in the room, like, I won't even do anything, and they're like, "Well, it's working now." Like, something
Mm,
about me, technology wants to usually work around me other than,
your
our
your
technical difficulties
vibration
earlier.
is a little different.
Yeah,
So
something like that.
well, because scientific, everything you vibrate
Mhm.
and it creates different shapes, right? Like certain sounds create certain
Yeah,
shapes in like sand. So I think scientifically there's something to that. I
yeah,
think all of us vibrate. There's no way all of us vibrate at the same wavelength, you know?
absolutely.
It's like
Have
the garage door opener, you're going to open up every single garage door.
Hilariously, ours hasn't been working recently because of the heat, and I realized today if it cools down, it works. Have you ever heard of, streetlight interference phenomena?
No, but now I'm intrigued.
So, when we first started doing Strange Talk, this was happening to me, like, constantly. Streetlight interference phenomena is basically, either when you get close to streetlights, they will either go out or, like, start flickering. And so it got to the point where I was driving, I could look at a light and go, "That one's about to go out," and then it would go out. It was really, really strange. It hasn't happened as much, like, in recent years, but when we first
Mhm.
started doing Strange Talk, it happened all the time to me. Just walking down the street, could look over, light goes out. Anytime I, like,
You
looked at one, it would go out.
do you break watches?
No,
Like
no,
if you wear them
weirdly.
like old school analog not
Yeah.
like these kind of watches, like
Haven't
regular
haven't
watches.
had any issues with that, so far, at least.
Because usually, I've people that have some sort of kind of electric mojo,
Mhm,
as I'll say it, they kill things like that. Like they can't, if the watch is on them all the time, it
mhm.
dies. Like, and I
Interesting.
don't mean like just the battery, like the whole thing is just kaput.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
hmm,
So I want, and then you wonder, well, am I just looking for the light that goes off?
right. And so
Is
that's
it,
why I wonder if that
is
it
it up
hasn't
here?
happened as much because I'm not looking for it as much now,
Yeah.
but I wasn't looking for it to begin with, like, and it
So
took me a
we
long
need a
time.
scientific experiment
Yeah, we need an
by Miss
experiment.
Alex of Strange Talk.
Yes.
We need this. 'Cause I think that I think there's something to it. That's
Yeah,
why. Yeah, everybody has something. It's like some people say they attract ghosts. Some people
mhm,
they, that kind of thing. So I'm curious about that.
yeah.
So since we've had our little investigation, have you had anything that's popped, since I feel sometimes if you investigate, all of a sudden at home you start seeing something. Did you see anything afterwards?
No, nothing so far. Like I said, we're in the process of moving, and,
I agree,
now that
Trev.
we're here, this place is so quiet, nothing weird happens here, which freaks me out almost more.
I don't like that either. Yeah.
Yeah, it's, like, too
I need a
quiet.
little bit of ambient chaos, like
My
a little
theory
bit.
on this is that we're by a body of water now, so maybe it's all attracted into the water or something instead,
Yeah.
but it
I mean,
has
a lot of
been
people think that
so quiet.
it's like a conduit, just kind of
Yeah,
hangs out. Everything
yeah,
passes through it.
mhm,
That's weird. I have, because I see him in here. I have had multiple people now mention Mildred coming across, and they had it pop up on theirs too. And so we're
hmm,
all in different places. Part of me is thinking, okay, is this just a common name that's programmed into this thing?
could be.
Or is she managing to talk across, because that showed up when we were there too. It was like my
Yeah,
last little thing I remember I wanted to mention.
yeah, which Mildred is my grandma's name, so if I get that, I'm like, "Grandma,
Oh,
what do you
yeah.
want?"
You're like, what are you doing here? That I don't know. And I got Marie. I remember I got Marie, which
Oh,
was
yeah, you
really
did get
interesting
Marie.
because that's a family name. It's my middle name.
If you
But
see
then
me
it's
looking
hard.
down, I'm checking this, we got atmosphere.
Now we're on it. Let's see. I almost
We
think
got
like it needs to
sculpture
get
and atmosphere, and
needs
also
to
I'm
get
in the
going.
trees.
I don't have my trigger objects aren't out. Like I don't
Mhm.
keep them out in the light.
It's probably
They're
smart.
Yeah, well, yeah, even though they're metal, I don't want to take a chance. They're
Yeah.
in a case, but they are in this room. So there's that.
I
In
do
case
also
I get
have
anything.
my, haunted not haunted, but haunted looking dolls behind me. Actually, the one in red that you can just see in the corner there, actually belonged to a friend of mine that died, so I've always thought that if anyone was gonna be haunted, it was gonna be that one. But so far, nothing.
So far, nothing.
Had it for years and nothing's weird's ever happened, so
Part of me wants to search out haunted objects, and yet the other part of me does not want them in my home. And
I
then then you have them. You've touched them. You've.
people used to give me their haunted objects because when I would give them back to them, they'd be like, "I don't know, it's not haunted anymore."
Yeah.
So, for a while, I would have all these haunted objects in my house and nothing would happen, and then I'd give them back and they'd be like, "Well, now it's not doing anything." And I was like,
You're like,
I
you
didn't
broke
do
it.
anything." Yeah. Well, they would give it to me because they wanted it to not do anything, and I was
Yeah.
like, "Okay, here's your thing back." And they'd be like, "It seems to be fine now. I don't know why." And I'm like, "I don't know either. I didn't do anything. I let it
So you
sit
were
there
just
for a little while."
you were just letting it air out. You weren't like
Yeah.
practicing anything.
Yeah. So I
Okay.
guess, my guess is probably just, like, it kind of, like, cut off whatever energy was going between them or something. Either that or
Well,
I just neutralize stuff, I don't know.
you have skills you don't even know.
Apparently or something, I don't know.
Don't go into an actual haunted location, because if you clear it out, they're gonna be pissed.
Well, so that's why I don't know if it is, like, something where I, like, neutralize it because it seems like I tend to only, like, see really, like, paranormal stuff. It tends to be only be around certain people.
Hmm.
Like, there's one friend of mine growing up that every time we were together, weird stuff would happen, but then by myself, it was fine. So I don't know. I
So
think something about energy draws people in. I don't know.
it's so because part of me is so like analytical about lots of things, but then
Mhm.
stuff like that happens and there's absolutely no explanation for that
Yeah.
at all. Like it doesn't make any sense. I have I wanted to ask, speaking of paranormal,
Yes.
when we first met at Frogman Festival,
Yes.
you recorded one of my stories
Mhm.
from Starvation Heights.
Yes.
I never got a chance to get your input on that. What was your take on that, on Miss Linda Hazard?
Oh, yeah, so that episode is really cool, like, that one's kind of, like, one of the weird, like, it's open lines, but not really since it was people at the festival. Yeah, I was reading more about that afterwards, like, it is so just fascinating, and was that one of the ones that you said that you had, like, some trigger objects from that? Or that's the metal
Not from that
piece.
place.
Okay,
So the valves are from Northern State Hospital in
okay,
Washington. I do not have anything from Starvation Heights. I
which
would
is
not.
probably for the best
Yeah.
because that sounds terrifying, like, I can only imagine.
Yeah.
Oh.
Apparitions of children and,
This is the first time
the
I've
whole
ever
thing.
got a name on here that has a first and last name.
Uh-oh.
It says Judas Cradle.
I don't I just don't even like the way
I've
I
never
don't
gotten
like
a
the way
first
it
and last name
sounds.
before.
Weird.
It's that's so strange. Like,
Mm-mm.
huh. I'll have to try this when we're not doing this too, to kinda see if it's this talkative when we're not doing this.
Right. 'Cause is
Oh,
it picking up on everything? It's
little
just gonna
girl
be
around you.
fun fact, folks, for those of you tuning in, it's just gonna be us doing a Spirit Talker session because I am obsessed with it as well.
Yeah, unintentionally, I was just like, "Oh, we'll see if it says anything." I thought it would give us 2 words, and now it's just spitting out word after word after word. Well, that's creepy.
Isn't that weird? I don't know, but see, that's part of it too. When it's completely silent, the general thought is that there's nothing here.
Yeah.
And then if it's only spitting out 1 or 2, then it's like, "Oh, we have this is normal." And all of a sudden when it spits out a gajillion, you're not sure if it's malfunctioning or it's like all this stuff just flowing in all of a sudden.
Mhm.
So we just have a fun fact. I don't know if that's true. Ghost Dog says the Judas Cradle is a torture
Oh,
device. Oh yeah, he followed it up. We got a follow up.
thank you.
Judas Cradle,
That sure is.
purported torture device invented in Spain in the 16th century by the Spanish Inquisition, by which they suspended victims'
Huh,
orifice. There's more orifice. Usually, the anus was slowly impaled on, and da 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 da.
goodness. Well, I'm glad it's not a person's full name because that's never happened before.
Well, I don't know what's worse, a person's full name or a 16th century torture device that stretches you from your backside out. That's just
That is
gross.
oddly specific.
It's oddly specific. And why do you have a person that was tortured by a 16th century torture device
Well, it
in your
said that,
abode?
and then little girl around you, and
That's
I'm like, I
weird.
don't like those together
No,
at all.
no, my cats are fighting. Anyway. Oh, and then he says it's also a band. Of course it's a
Oh, yeah,
band.
of course it is. Yeah, it has to be.
Makes total sense. But Olalla, I was briefly back
Yeah.
to Olalla, Washington
Mhm.
with the Starvation Heights.
Yeah.
I That is a place it was haunted. It's
Yeah.
gone now, but I just wasn't sure if you had a chance to read about her. See, it had us at all. Serial killer, haunted location, middle of
Mhm.
nowhere, tortured.
Maybe a Judas Cradle, who knows?
Yeah, maybe she
Maybe the
wanted
ghosts
to.
were trying to tell us something?
Yeah, that's wild. Or maybe it's what it felt like. Who
Could be.
knows? Dying
Oh,
of
yeah.
dehydration. Who knows?
Mhm.
Have you ever been on a paranormal investigation like a bit like that? Or
I
like
not
you're like this house this happened.
I guess not officially. My friend where weird stuff used to happen, kind of around us when we were together, we would go out in the woods and kinda do that, using, like, just different stuff we'd read about online, so it wasn't very scientific, because we had read back then, there was that trick where you'd flip over playing cards, and however many face cards you got was supposed to be how haunted it was, which
I am
statistically,
I haven't
you're
heard
gonna
that
turn up a
before.
face card. Yeah, I
Right, right. You're
and this
like,
was,
"It's
like,
numbers."
in the early 2000s, so we probably read it on some stupid forum or something,
Right.
that I will never be able to find again, but yeah, no, we did stuff like that that was not very scientific. It's it's only now, like, I have an H4n, and actually there's an unaired episode of Strange Talk we did. In the middle of winter, we went out to the Goatman Bridge, just to, like, walk around and talk about it while we were walking around, but we didn't really get anything on the recorder on that, so it's all
I've
been
heard
very
that.
unofficial stuff.
I've heard that though about the Goatman's Bridge,
Mhm.
because it's supposed to have, it's supposed to be haunted,
Yeah.
but
Well,
I've
because
heard
people did
multiple groups
actually
say, like
die there, not from the Goatman, but from the trains,
right.
um, and that's I don't think I aired that, but even while we were recording it, it was like, "Do not go on the train tracks. The Goatman may not kill you, but the train will.
But the trains will,
Do not climb on this."
because
So,
people are dumb.
yes. Yeah,
Sometimes they
one
are.
of the most kinda haunting stories was a guy and his girlfriend were up there, and a train came, and he dropped down and was holding on to the train truss, and so he survived, but his girlfriend didn't. And so then he went to jail after that, which also he's gonna have survivor's guilt. So
Yeah,
it's just a bad idea, just don't do it.
just stay away from trains. I don't
Yeah,
think people realize
bad,
just
bad
how bad
idea.
they are.
It is thousands and thousands of pounds of screaming metal on a metal track, like, just don't
Yeah,
do it.
you're not walking away from it,
No,
like, quit
no.
it. But there's all these stories in haunted places where stuff like that happened.
Yep, yep.
Speaking of being out in the middle of nowhere,
Mhm.
so with your travels, so
Yes.
I like because we like to kind of work our way. We've worked on paranormal here for a little while. Aliens, of course, is inevitably going to be something that we have to talk
Yes.
about.
Absolutely.
Have you ever seen or been part of an alien encounter?
So I have definitely seen what I think is probably a UFO.
Okay,
Actually, a couple times. The house that I grew up in, there was a pond across the street, and when like it was somewhere between a pond and a lake. It's not quite big enough to
sure.
be one or the other. Um, but I would always see these lights hovering over it. And I know that the person who lived there did not own a boat, so it wasn't that, but I would always see these lights hovering above it. And I always
Like
thought that that was weird.
How many lights? One, 2,
Um,
3, 4.
usually it would only be like 3 at a time tops, anywhere between 1 and 3, just kinda
Okay.
hovering above it. And so I, like, thought that was weird, but I was just like, "You know what? Whatever, sure, something weird's going on over there." But really what it was I was in the car driving home with my mom one night, and we saw a light just whoosh right by, and I again was like, "Oh, that's weird, but, whatever," until I looked over and I saw my mom's face, and I was like, "Oh, you saw that too." And so my mom and I saw a UFO together,
Validation.
and I was just like, "Oh, okay.
Like, "We're gonna have to
Well,
talk about this."
that is
Talk to
not
your
a
mom.
way that a man-made craft can move." So, yeah.
Wow.
And it was always along that stretch of road, which I later found out that the road that we lived on was supposed to be very haunted. So now I'm like, was it an
Double
alien?
whammy.
Was it a ghost? I don't know.
Well,
But it
because
definitely
sometimes paranormal entities show up as lights too.
yes, yeah. But,
So,
the way it kinda, like, zigged was just like, "Okay, yeah,
okay,
no,
that
that's
that smells
not
like alien.
human." Yeah. Um,
Weird. What do you remember what color they were?
it was just like a normal white light.
Like white
It
light.
was just always like a white light, sometimes it would be, like, a little bit yellowy or a little bit blue, but it was always, like, white, just glowing orb.
Weird. Well, and if it was a boat, they have to have one red, one green.
Mhm. And that's why I was
So
like, I
that
know the owner
that doesn't
doesn't have
make
a
sense.
boat 'cause they never had it out during the day or anything, and I'm like, they would've had
Mhm.
it at least out at least once during the day, you know? But no,
Weird.
never, never.
And just that one time?
That was the one time that me and my mom both saw it, but, like,
Yeah.
it constantly, I would look out in the middle of the night and just see those lights hovering, and I was just like, "Eh, well."
You're like, aliens."
Yeah, because my window in my room faced that but it was like a higher up window, so I had to like climb on my bed and like peek up and go, well, okay, there's lights out there again. I'm just gonna ignore that and I'm gonna go to bed now.
So we have a question from
Ooh.
Trev. Do you think paranormal phenomena and extraterrestrial phenomena go hand in hand, and that they occur together? I think
Sometimes.
sometimes. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think sometimes. The first example that pops into my head was when you break down the Mothman encounter
Mm.
and how they talk about, just before
Oh,
the
yeah.
policeman had the static, they had poltergeist activity,
Mhm.
they had possible Indrid cold mixed with other things happening. So that's like one historical selection, I think that it does.
That's funny because my first thought was, Flatwoods Monster, Braxy, also in West Virginia,
Mhm.
because, kind of her appearing was associated with all these lights in the sky and UFOs and stuff like that, and a lot of people think that she might be some kind of alien,
Right.
especially considering the radiation that came off of her,
Mhm.
but, she
She's my
gets
favorite.
classified same. She gets classified as a cryptid, but she also might be an alien. So I
Yeah.
think, also Hopkinsville goblins also could be aliens. Like that's kind of we talked about that during our presentation at GullyCon of like that's kind of where the phrase "little green men" came from.
Yep.
Is it came from the Hopkinsville goblins, not so much aliens, unless they are aliens, in which case same thing.
And so I think then it's almost where not necessarily there's paranormal that can also happen. I
Mhm.
think sometimes they're linked. It could be because the aliens cause some sort of spike in, some sort of fields and whatnot,
Yeah.
energy. But also you see that with creatures. Creatures
Mhm.
mixed with aliens. It's like they always kind of seem to be in these little groupings
Yeah.
when you really get down and read about it. But those those little goblins, those are aliens.
I think so too. I
in
think so
my
too.
in my humble, creepy, confidential opinion.
I think it's interesting which ones get classified as cryptids versus like grays are solely aliens and they're not considered cryptids. Ooh,
So there's
that's a
one.
good question.
I mean, they're beings.
They are,
They might not haunt here, but they might haunt someplace else.
unless ghosts are aliens.
But they're like solid,
Yeah.
where
Well,
ghosts are usually
not all
like,
of them.
eh,
Hmm. That's a good question.
it's like all related
Yeah.
in a sense. And then Butters Paranormal also commented, in my opinion, I think Flatwoods Monster is an alien. I
Yeah.
agree.
I think so
I
too.
have even just reading through that I have my classic book, They Knew Too Much About Flying Saucers, and there's like a great recount. I bought that. I love it. They talk about that and they break down the story of that. And then you start comparing to other stories of other people. It's it's wild how
Mhm.
it's all coincides. Oh my gosh, ghost dog. Oh wait, I'm married to Braxy. That's funny. So ghost dog is Mr. Creep.
Gotcha. I kind of figured that out.
Together.
That's good. Goblins.
Goblins.
Love it.
I also, when I first started like my journey even as a kid with all the books, you always got the basic alien picture, right?
Mhm.
The little head with the little
Yeah.
almond
The big
eyes.
eyes, yeah.
But I didn't realize until I started I'll say this journey, I'll say 5 years ago, and I
Mhm.
started this after that. I'm like, there are so many books that have the reports of and
Mhm.
written schematics, and I was like, there's even more things to be afraid of now that I didn't even know about. I find it wild that
Oh, yeah.
it's just endless. So another one, they definitely
Yep.
aliens. We
I
agree
agree.
too.
I agree.
I wonder if there's any other. I'm still thinking about this paranormal extraterrestrial crossover thing. I wonder if like would almost want to read more case studies to find where all three happen.
Yeah.
You have paranormal, you have aliens, and then you have like creatures.
I think there were UFO sightings before the Silver Bridge collapse too, and before
Hmm.
people saw Mothman. But it's also like hard to say where the lights that they seeing too. That could have just been Mothman too.
Right.
Especially with like a flying creature, it's hard to tell if it is a UFO sighting or UAP sighting or the actual
But
cryptid.
did he light up?
That's what I'm wondering because people always say he had like kind of the red glowing eyes. So I'm wondering if that's what they were seeing. Have you
I
um have you been out to the TNT area where like a lot of those sightings happened?
no, I haven't been down to like specifically standing in front of what everybody else does, but
Mhm.
all the way down there and the woods
Yeah.
and everything like that,
Super
yes.
creepy.
And even in the daylight, you
Oh,
expect
it's
to
so
be
creepy.
driving it just down there because it's so thick, and you
Mhm.
just expect to see like
Just
something.
Bigfoot.
Yeah, right there, just full on. Yeah. And I had so much to learn that West Virginia looked that way because I'm not from down there. And I easily could say like they could have seen anything in that thick of the woods, and there's no way you would have known what you were
I,
looking at.
my, extended family is all from West Virginia, and so we would go every year and just see the weirdest stuff out there. Like, all of the bugs in West Virginia are massive for no reason.
Yeah. It's all like there it's like a mini Australia.
It kinda is.
Like the bugs, the little creepy crawlies.
It really kinda is.
Mhm. I have uh I have something that, like if you're specifically where the Mothman sighting is, the
Mhm,
minute you turn that corner, well, I come from the north, but you
mhm.
turn from that little tiny town and you see the cooling towers there,
Yep,
and then Point Pleasant is like way behind it.
yep.
You're like, yeah, this could totally happen.
The way that I normally go, you have to drive past the Christmas tree farm, and you see the nuclear coolers on the left, just towering smoke, and then all of that, just the forest is all on the right, and it's just dark and creepy. It's so cool, though.
It's cool
It's so
though.
cool.
So Ghost Dog says
Mhm.
goats. Oh my gosh,
Oops.
ghosts. Totes my goats. Ghosts are our doppelgangers from neighboring dimensions that resemble us but can't come over completely, so we
Mm.
see them as ghosts. Trevor, I know you're going to comment on this because you and him could talk forever about this. But that's an interesting because doppelgangers are supposed to be paranormal in their own right.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
You're not supposed to be able to see your own doppelganger or you die, so could
Yep.
be.
Oh, and there's Trev.
Yep.
Holds a ton of weight. See, I knew he was going to see it. All right, we have a question.
Yes.
Do you think UFOs are more talked about than USOs? Yes.
Yeah. We don't hear much about USOs. Especially the last time I think I heard anything really about USOs as far as paranormal news was, like, the bloop way back in the day, which was, like, one of the first things that we ever got to talk about on the show, wildly. Um,
But
yeah.
I don't think it comes up, but I also, with things like Google Earth,
Mhm.
that's like they found one off the coast of California. I talked about that, I think, in my UFO sightings one because I didn't know of an actual one that someone had a picture of. And then I looked into it, and it's right off the coast of California. But once you look at it, I think it's a reach.
Yeah.
I think that the USOs thing is possible,
Mhm.
but people don't have enough evidence. With UFOs, there's 5 gajillion million pictures of lights in the sky, different figures. There's just more to talk about,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
And also, the ocean's already just kinda creepy on its own.
Yeah, think about how big they are, and we've discovered this much of it.
Yeah. What's down there? Not my business.
Not my business. Not my
Not
That's
my
a good way to
business.
I'm gonna take that next time someone asks that. "What's down there? Not my business.
Yep.
That's what's down
Go
there.
for it.
Is
Yep.
not my
Yep.
business."
Nope. When that is my problem, I will deal with it, but I'm not going down there.
So Ghost Dog says, if you're from West Virginia and you see something strange, oh, then it's strange.
Yes, that is very correct.
I have,
Um,
because these episodes, for people that are maybe tuning in, I do
mhm.
read a lot of these because this turns into an audio episode,
Yeah.
so they won't be able to see what's on the screen. Oh my gosh, dimension goats, totes my goats. Telling you, that's gonna be my thing. Oh, here's another one. Your dimensional neighbors are almost exactly like you. So imagine talking to yourself through a veil or talking to someone else's. Oh, that's creepy just
Hmm.
thinking about it.
'Cause that would explain why, ghosts a lot of times when you're, like, trying to talk to a ghost, their voices are kind of limited, and that would make sense if it's going through a veil, they
It's
can't
like
push
a
it
filter.
through. Yeah.
Yeah. It's all like, or a screen or a scrim. Yeah, that's, ooh, but can you, someone needs to turn that into a movie. I just got all kinds of ideas in my head. That needs to be a movie.
Well, we should talk to the, Frogman movie people since they're making a second one.
It would be a great scary movie.
It'd be a great scary movie.
So another question from Butters Paranormal. Do you think parts of the earth are hollow?
Mm, it's possible some of it is. I think that's another one of those where I'm just like, "What's down there is not my business." I like space, but I
You
am terrified of the ocean and being underground, so I try not to think about it too hard.
So riddle me this, Batman. You're okay with an infinite space that you cannot see. There's
Yes.
literally,
Yeah.
you can't go, "Hey, look over there." But we can go the earth from outer space and say this is contained, and but that you're like, "Uh-uh."
First, I think it's the weight of it where you would just get crushed, and that sounds horrifying to me. In space, all you can do is, like, get more lost, I guess. Maybe I just watched, like, way too much Star
Unless
Trek
you
as a
fall out of your
kid.
spaceship boat and then you're
Well, then
toast.
you're gonna, like, freeze to death pretty instantly and,
Not instantaneously.
not completely instantaneously, but I think
You
I'm just
still have to
horrified by
feel,
the idea of being crushed to death.
I any idea of that expanding or being compressed is terrifying.
I don't like it.
UFOs and USOs are probably the same. Aliens base themselves underwater so they can study
Oh,
or watch us and be left alone. That makes sense.
yeah, that would make sense.
And there's parts of the ocean we have not found, like gotten to the bottom of.
So,
But
Loch
again,
Ness Monster is them maybe putting something there to study us because we're looking at it like, "What is that?" And
it's
really
a
that just
plant.
lets them look at us and
Yeah,
go,
it's a plant.
What are these little creatures doing?"
But isn't it small? I mean, Loch Ness is small compared to
Mhm.
a humpback whale.
Yeah, I was
It's
just thinking if they were using that as, like, an observation.
can you imagine that Nessie is this like
It's like a
uh
periscope.
periscope? Words are escaping me. Thank you. And it just like whoop, and then looks around, you know?
And we're
That's
like, "What's
interesting.
that?" And they're like, "Oh, look, they're all looking at us."
Yeah. That's a weird looking periscope. Oh man. So if Ghost Dog wants me to do a Hollow Earth episode
Mhm,
because he talks about the whole, he's given me the basis of it, and I've just looked up my 5 cent scratch pad
mhm.
and about how there's portals and it connects and this and that. I'm like, I don't know. That's a tough one. You can't get to the center of the earth. It's too hot.
Yeah. I think that's the tough one with that one is because we don't have any way of getting evidence for that right now. I mean,
Yeah,
science may come, further, but right now is like, how do you study that? You can't.
you can't. Yeah, we've tried barreling into the earth and it gets too hot.
Yeah.
Like,
Because also, for all we know, I mean, there
there's
could be like portals at the bottom of the ocean.
yeah. Oh, don't get oh,
Mm.
yeah. Yeah,
I say,
eh,
what's
it's
down
not
there?
my
Not
business.
my business.
No. I I am totally gonna use that. Now of all the cryptids and creatures,
Mhm.
is we were speaking of cryptids and creatures, you said Braxy is your favorite. correct?
Yeah, she's probably my favorite. I really like Braxy. I really love the Fresno Nightcrawlers. And then Loveland is my hometown, so I have to love the frog.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think everybody loves the frog too.
Because also
Now what
he's mostly harmless. He just shoots little sparks at you and then runs away.
but why? Where did the sparks come from? I have so many questions. Were you like working on your car and it just something didn't happen and you
I
came
think
across it? I don't know.
realistically, out of the cryptids, out of the stories, I realistically think that the Loveland frog probably does not exist.
I agree.
Especially because, and it could be because he was getting ridiculed. It's hard to say, but one of the original police officers that saw it later came out and said, "Oh, it was actually just an iguana." So maybe he backtracked because he was getting ridiculed, but I
And then it
think that
just
maybe it
exploded.
doesn't exist. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. My listening to the oh my gosh, his name's Willis?
Mhm.
Yeah, Weird
Yeah.
Willis. Um I had my episode for the Frogman already like ready before the first time I ever heard his first talk. Um and I was like gonna put it out. And then I listened to him talk and I was like not gonna put it out. And I completely it was all about he's the one who kind of connected the dots. Was every single story is different and then changes.
Yep.
Like it was like you're right. Oh my gosh, that is totally true. And of course you have the one cop that I think he just wanted to be famous and
Yeah.
he didn't care. And the other one, yeah, got ridiculed.
Yeah. So
So what about Braxy makes you like what makes you say that's my favorite?
I think it's just how absolutely weird it was. Like, just showed up, irradiated a bunch of people, and then was like, "All right, bye guys, see you later," and just left and never came
I'm
back.
out.
Which is like, bye. Like, people still like have Mothman sightings. People still have Loveland Frog sightings. Braxy was just like, bye guys, I'm
One and
done here.
done.
Yeah, one and
Yeah.
done. She knew when to get out. So that's why I also kind of think she's probably an alien. She probably just got on her ship and went back home
And
or somewhere else. You know, it's
I
I
think so
mean,
too.
she could have been on vacation here. Who knows what she was up to, but she just got out.
Might have
And
been
I'm like,
intentional.
I just think that is the most fascinating thing because I feel like so many others, like there's all these repeated sightings. Braxy, it just happened and then no more.
Yeah. No other stories.
Yeah.
I Yeah, I do. I love that story. And
Mhm.
then going down there as well and seeing
Yeah.
that part, you're like, "Oh, man." You're like,
Oh my
there's the
gosh.
hill and the school and the like, you could put the whole thing together.
When the first time that I went to Flatwoods, we got there on a Sunday and the town was deserted. And we were like, where is everybody? Come to find out, there was a child beauty pageant happening at the church. And so as we drove by the church going down Main
Okay.
Street, we saw the signs for it, but we didn't see anybody except for this one guy outside smoking who just looked like he was not having it. And we just drove by it like, oh, okay, I guess we're gonna go look for the Braxy chairs now. It was the bizarrest thing. It felt very like the town had been abducted because we only saw that one man.
But I think there's not a lot to do in
Yes,
that
that's why I think
area.
everybody was there.
You know, you're kind of far away.
Mhm.
So when you're there, maybe that's literally they can't go like, "Oh, I'm gonna drive 15 minutes to Sheetz and go get, a pop
Yeah.
and a candy bar." It's
Nope. It's,
kind of in the middle of nowhere.
I do remember they had a sign too that they were selling candy and pop as a fundraiser. I don't know why I remember the sign so vividly, but it was just like,
Speaking
this is
of
it felt
that.
like being in a Twilight Zone episode, it really did.
Yeah.
And this was before the museum had moved too, and so we drove out there and it ended up being closed that day after we drove out there. So we were like, "Okay, we'll just find the chairs instead." So
Yeah.
but the new location's way better, so it works out.
I have it's like a soda jerk. Like it used to be an old like
Mhm.
soda jerk place. I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah. I went because my mask is there and I thought that was so cool.
Yeah.
It's
Super,
not
super cool.
super big, but there's so much packed
It
in that little
is way bigger
space.
than the old one was.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, they're
The
gonna
old
if
one
they're
was,
gonna
like,
keep
barely one room.
the chairs were cool too. I think we only
Mhm.
found one, but we were like trying to get back to here.
Yeah,
So
I don't know if they do it anymore. When we did it, we found all the chairs, and the last chair was at a hotel, and if you went there and showed them that you had found all the rest of them, they would give you a sticker that said "Free Braxy."
That's worth it.
So there used to be a little prize for finding all the chairs.
All the what is that? Treasure hunt, that kind of.
Yes. Yeah.
I know.
It was a
I
lot of
want to
fun.
go back and see the other ones because they moved one of them, which I think is the
Yeah,
one that I
they've
saw.
moved a couple of them, I think, from the last time we went. Because yeah, one of them, it's not at the hotel anymore, I know that much. I think they
It
had enough weird people walking in the hotel, like, "Where's the chair?"
it's like not here anymore. It's gone. It's just of all the cryptids, one like Braxy that's only had one sighting. Like everybody loves Bigfoot
Yeah,
because there's
a
a
million Bigfoot
gajillion
sightings.
sightings. Yeah, it's just interesting.
I will say, jackalopes, people talked about them like they were real so much when I was a kid that I did not know that it was, like, a fake animal. Like
Well, and they have like taxidermy versions of them.
yeah.
Where if you're a munchkin, you don't know.
Why would
You're
I
like,
ever
that's
not think
real.
that that was real? Yeah, and then meanwhile, like, later on, like, after I found out it's not real or it's a cryptid, um, later on, they show me a narwhal, and I'm like, "Well, yeah, that's not real." And they're like, "No, this one's real."
You're like, wait, what?
What?
The world is a lie. So, Butter's Paranormal. I'm not sure what is my favorite cryptid. Probably Mothman. I think
Mothman.
Mothman's on
Mothman's
the. If
solid.
it's solid. I think if you go up to somebody, you have kind of 1 in 3 chances of getting it right.
Yeah,
They're usually Bigfoot, Mothman, Loch Ness monster.
yeah.
Like I didn't
I
even know
will
Braxy
say
existed till I got here.
Fresno Nightcrawler,
I do love Fresno.
also, like, I love them because it's just like, why are your pants walking away right now?
I say disco pants every time I
Yes,
see them. They're like
they
disco
look like
pants.
bell bottoms.
They do. I I I love when I finally got to cover them, and I got art that was made for it,
Mhm.
and I can't wait. You're going to be on a T-shirt. I'm really
So
excited.
cool. I love them.
And but again, like it's not. There's legit sightings. There's two.
Mhm. Yeah,
Like actually, everything
there's
else
not a
has
lot.
been like debunked.
Yeah.
So, oh my gosh, what is this one? We have another one. My favorite cryptid is my 7P. I don't know what that is. Teacher from Mrs. Landry. She was terrifying. They could be a cryptid, some of those teachers. Oh, 700-year-old.
Oh,
I saw that.
700. Yeah.
Yeah, the next comment was 700.
Whale of corns.
Whalicorns.
Accurate. Yeah.
Do you have any cryptids that you are like you want to go see the destination? You obviously we've done Braxy. You know,
Yeah, I've done Braxy, I've done Mothman, obviously Loveland, I
but
grew up
those are like
there.
technically neighbors to each other.
Yeah, they're about 3 hours apart,
Yeah.
and also I spent a lot of time in West Virginia. I've been to the Goatman Bridge. We wanna go out to the Hopkinsville area to check that out. Honestly, the biggest one that I really wanna check out, is, Hodag
Oh, you're going to
territory.
Wisconsin.
Yeah, like, we haven't planned out when we're gonna go yet, but I really wanna go out there, because also the people that run the Hodag store are so nice.
Well, they're from Wisconsin.
Exactly.
Northern Wisconsin, gorgeous.
Yeah,
Do not go there in the winter.
noted, yes. I'm not a
Yes.
winter person to begin with.
After it hits different. It's,
Yeah.
it might as well be Alaska. Like it's
Yes.
freezing and it's nothing but snow.
Oh,
But
that's actually, we're gonna go out to Roswell next year, and we're trying to
I want
plan
to go
it
there
where it's
too.
not gonna be super hot, so I think we're gonna try to go kind of, like, very early spring where it's hopefully not just sweltering.
Right. I'm always worried there's going to be like a million people there, which
Yes.
I'm sure there is because everybody wants to go to
Yeah.
Roswell.
Yeah. So we're trying to plan kind of like a trip that goes to a few places in there and check out some other cool stuff over there, but Roswell I think will be really cool.
That's on your bucket your alien cryptid
Mm.
bucket list.
I really hadn't gone out west until was it earlier this year or last year? I don't know, time blurs together. I finally went out to, like, Arizona and Colorado in the last couple of years, and I was like, "Oh, out west is so different than here," like Everything's
It
not
is.
all just like green and humid.
It's very different. Yes.
Very different.
So he says Fresno night crawlers look like cream cheese that evolved, which makes
Yes.
sense because there's like no real like extra anatomy. It's just
Yeah, it's just a little it's
some
kind of like
eyes and some legs.
a tooth. It's kind
Yeah,
of shaped like a tooth and it just
like
walks
roots and the
away.
top. Yeah, but they're so like they're not in a hurry. They're not running.
That's what the thing. I
It's
really want to see one that's just sprinting.
it can't. The drag on those legs.
Probably not.
Never gonna get full speed with those bad boys.
I wonder I wonder if they could fly, if they could like whoosh.
Can you imagine if they're like a little squid and they just like
Yeah,
and just take off?
that'd
Hopefully
be
they don't
so
ink,
cool.
but it would be
I hope
cool.
they don't.
Like they're like space squid. Like they just
Yeah,
and take off. That would be awesome.
that's
Awesome.
why I think Fresno
And
Nightcrawlers are so
terrifying
cool. Yeah.
all at the same time.
I mean, I guess at least they don't seem to like attack people,
Yeah.
so I'll give
They're
them
very
that.
like they
They're
didn't
just
even
minding their
like
own
look up at the
business.
camera or they
Yeah.
just lollygagged across the yard down the trail.
Yeah, so maybe actually I don't want to see one sprinting because that probably means something's wrong.
You need to run with them
Yes.
if they're running.
Yes.
That's like if someone sees me running, there's a problem.
Yeah, if I'm running, I have asthma. There's definitely a problem.
Same. Same. There's definitely a problem. If I'm running and hitting the inhaler, you need to go. So out of all the cool things that we have chatted about, I know we're coming up here on usually on about an hour. But I want to ask you, do you have anything that's coming up in the future? Something that you want to let us all know about so that we don't miss?
Well, we have Frogman Fest coming up next year. We're going to be doing a talk at Frogman Fest next year. So
Ooh,
I'm really
fun.
excited about that, partially because I get to go back to my hometown, and partially also just because Jeff, who runs it, is just awesome and so, so friendly. Um, and
I
also
want a
just
table there so bad, but it'll
you
come.
should talk to him about it.
That's
I
awesome
actually
though.
I've
Talking Frogman.
met him for the first time at a CryptidCon, so met a lot of really, really cool people there. And then
I
I
have heard CryptidCon mentioned multiple times here on the stream, and
really
that's what people are like, "We met so and so," or
that's
"It
so
was our
funny.
first time and it was great," or "That's where it kicked off and now we sell mainstream such and such."
That's so wild because it's
It's
not that big
crazy.
of a convention, and because it happens here in Lexington, and, like, I went on a whim because I was like, "Oh, I didn't know that there was a convention here. Here we are."
Yeah,
And it was so cool. That's how we met, Dacre Stoker, Bram Stoker's great-grandnephew, and that's how we ended up with
I
him on the
remember.
show. That was really cool.
Yeah,
Like, we met so many just, like, super cool people there. Liz, Pavlovic, who just did, she just did a new mural in West Virginia, a bunch of cryptids eating pizza at a pizza place, which is super cool. Like, we've met so
that's
many
so
just, like,
sweet.
super, super cool people there, and so that's where I met Jeff, which in turn is kind of how I met you since it was Frogman Fest where I met you.
I
So,
love it.
I
Well, and
love it.
I knew that you were Strange Talk, and we were already on the bill for
Mhm.
GhouliCon. That's
Yes,
why. So
yeah.
I was looking for you.
Yeah, yeah, you're like, "Strange Talk," and I was like, "Hello."
I was like, I have to at least say hi.
Yeah, and I'm super glad you did. Now we're doing this, and now we're
Well,
investigating ghosts.
yeah, right? We need that. We need like a big. I've been planning some sort
We
of
should.
like creepy confidential hits the road for paranormal. I didn't do it for a long time, and then Trevor, bless his heart, he's not in here anymore. He roped me in and told me I needed to come back and started off at one of the haunted schools here. And
I think that would be
I've
really
been
cool to do.
it's Post Town here. If you ever
Mhm.
get a chance to come to Post Town, that
Yeah.
place is hopping,
Yeah.
hopping. Usually, I have never been in an investigation like that, and I've been on a lot.
Yeah. That would be super
Usually, it's
cool.
like you get a couple, and then you wait, and you
Yeah,
wait.
and then you're like, "Okay."
This was like boom, boom, boom. People upstairs, downstairs. Yeah, if you get a chance to be a part of one of their, because they open it up to the public, so highly suggest.
Yeah. Well, and if you ever go through and want to do some paranormal investigating, we got plenty of haunted stuff around here. I have a friend who's a medium here. Like we could do some fun stuff. That's why I've been wanting to do some paranormal investigations here. I just
Hit the
haven't gotten around to
trails.
it yet.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, I wanted to make sure that we covered and that we made sure that you got to talk about things that you have in the future. Now,
Yes.
because this people that are watching this, we had to restart this, but I will make sure that all of your information is
Yes.
out there in the comments for people to find.
Mhm.
But you can also creepyconfidential.com will show all of Alex's information as well. Thank you so
Yeah, thank
much.
you so much.
And thank you again for your patience for our technical difficulties we had.
Of course.
All right, creeps, we're going to head out for the evening. You guys have a creepy good night. Alex, thanks again. And
Thank
we'll
you.
catch you next time here on Creepy Confidential.